Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Wendi McLean, thank you for coming in, and lovely to have you here. I'm on a bit of a roll now with ladies coming on the show, so I've learnt my lesson. The first 9, I think, were all men, and I got told off for it. But I've made up for that now. I've got about 6 recorded now, and they're all coming out shortly. So lovely to have you on it. Tell us what you do. Tell our listeners what you get up to and what you're most known for at the moment, and then we'll delve into a bit of your background and how you got here.
Fantastic. Yeah, so I'm Wendi McLean, and I am a mindset and confidence coach. And I've been doing that since 2019. So I've been at my practice now for 6 years. And I work with clients both in Norfolk, the UK, and I have clients in the States as well.
And as you know, I'm often confused by things. So, but how would you differentiate from a business coach? You're more about the mindset behind it, presumably, and the...
Yeah, so I focus really on what makes you tick. So, for example, people who maybe run businesses or even climb up that career ladder, they have these ambitions and they have these dreams. They've got the energy, but something gets in their way. They get so far and something stops them. My job is to uncover that, understand what is stopping them so that they can then take those steps that they desire. And generally, it can be limiting beliefs, especially with business people. A lot of business people have limited beliefs around money. They either don't believe they deserve it, or when they get it, they can't hold on to it. They spend it in irrational ways. So it's really...
I'm not laughing there too much, honestly.
So it's...
Spend it irrationally, me.
So it's just kind of unpicking whatever it is that is with that particular person, because we're all unique, we're all got our different ways, but we're very much a product of our life and our experiences, and especially in the first 7 years of our life, that is where most of our beliefs come from.
Interesting. It's interesting you say that 7 years as well, because I've been trying to look for patterns among the guests that I've had in here, and one of them has been that they've all either started work early or done a little paper round, or done something really early on, or worked for the parents. And I for one was sort of every Saturday and Sunday sometimes working in my dad's chip shop. Probably 5, 6, 7 years old. So it was
I think it comes from how the parents are. If you've got parents that are really sort of like hardworking, or they believe that you've got to do a good job and things like that, you kind of inherit that belief potentially, and you take that with you through your childhood.
Yeah, interesting. So take us back now. How did you get here, and what background did you have, and where did you grow up?
Okay, so I'm an Essex girl. So I grew up in a place called Harold Hill, which at the time, now it's classed as East London. It's classed as an East London suburb. But when I lived there, it was quite leafy. It was, it was a council estate, and it was really lovely, because we were like, we had our junior and infant school, like just one class per year, and they weren't full. So it was that kind of environment. Everyone knew everybody. You'd play safely in the streets. You just go out and play in the fields for all day. There was never a problem. So, I feel privileged to actually have been brought up in that position. Now, when I go back and have a look at it now, it's just so different. It's so built up. And as like I said, it's now part of East London.
And sorry to touch on this, but we've already touched on it. Your parents, did you get any insight into hard working from an early age? Or?
Yeah, so my parents were really young when they had me. I think my mum was 18, my dad just turned 19, so they were really young. So they really did have it tough financially. So every penny counted. Was that I remember that I never went without. Don't get me wrong, but mum used to make my clothes, for example, and Dad was always the money coming on a Friday, that's how much we had to spend. We went on holiday, each envelope had a specific amount in it, money for food, money for petrol, money for this, money for that. So, and that's how it lasted. So that was kind of how I was brought up. My mum and dad were really, they did work hard. They they didn't sort of sit around on their laurels or anything like that. So yeah, I did learn from that, and I learned respect. I learned to respect money. Although I can't say I carried that forward. But yeah, so I felt really fortunate, and I still got friends to this day that I started school with, and we still go out together.
Yeah, nice. And so what brought you up here, or what?
Right.
Well, we probably jumped way ahead there. Did you go to uni or college? Or?
Yeah, so no, I didn't. When I left senior school, it was never even discussed that I'd go to uni, to be fair. When I started senior school, I really wanted to go to boarding school, but obviously my parents were never going to be in a position to do that. So as a compromise, they sent me to like private classes at the weekend.
You wanted to go to boarding?
Yeah,
I don't know anyone who ever said they
really wanted to go to boarding school. I don't know why. I just did. My parents couldn't afford it, so as a compromise, they helped me. They paid for me to have like private lessons at the weekend, so maths and English predominantly. English was never my top subject, but maths was. I was kind of, I was one of those kids that could do maths in their head and things like that. And by the time I was probably in about the third year, the school were kind of telling my mum and dad to stop it because I was so far ahead. I was going to school and learning nothing. So they had to stop at that point, unfortunately. But it did mean that I was quite successful as far as maths was concerned. But that was about as far as it went. I was very athletic. I was always either dancing or playing sports. There was a couple of pivotal points, specifically in senior school, that I think contributed to kind of how I see things now, and certainly behaviours I've had to work on, and that was I was quite badly bullied, and to be fair, as a lot of kids were in those days, but I was on the hockey team and I was the goalkeeper, and we'd gone into a tournament, and the only person you cannot replace on a hockey team in those days was the goalkeeper once you started the tournament, and quite a lot of the girls were bullying me in the hockey team. So I thought the only way I can get back at them all at the same time is to pull out the tournament. So that's what I announced, that was it. But my teacher pulled me up in front of the whole class, called me a traitor and slapped me around the face. And that really, I didn't realise how much it impacted me, but it really stopped me speaking up so much, because I felt that that was my voice, and therefore, I can stick up for myself in this way, but I kind of was punished for actually sticking up for myself. Yeah, so that was a hard lesson.
That's a hard lesson, yeah.
She apologised later, but in private, ironically, not in front of the class. But so there was things like that during my senior school that, impacted maybe how I saw things. But nevertheless, 16, I left school. I did my O-levels, so I got 4 O-levels, I think, and then got a job in the West End. Being where we were located, it was quite normal for us at 16 to go work in the West End or in London. My first job was working in marketing, worked for a marketing agency in Soho. I lasted all of about 4 weeks, I think. It was working on a Kensal computer.
I don't even know what one of those is.
Probably showing my age here. A Kensal computer, and it kept giving me headaches, and I couldn't cope with it. So I kind of moved around, and I ended up in travel.
I'm going to have to commit that to memory. I want to Google that, find out what that is.
Yeah, it's like this huge
sort of word processor, was it?
Yeah, it was like a massive machine. And literally you'd type, and it would the words would come up along the
green screen.
Yeah, it was an orange screen, I think, if I recall. But never that sort of thing. Yeah. So that was that, and then I spent sort of a couple of years working in travel. I was a bit of a chancer. I talk myself into jobs and then figure out how to do it once I got there. My first client was in travel asking to go to Canary Islands, and I asked them where it was because I had no idea. So that was good. And then I went on what do you call excursion type things, because when you're in travel you get loads of free trips, and one was to Ibiza, and I met a guy there, and we talked for about an hour just before I left to come home, and I ended up going to live there on that one whim. My parents were mortified. I was 19. But I thought, no, life's for living. You got to go with these things. So I spent sort of 5 months learning to speak Dutch, coming home from work, go into my bedroom. Would you remember lingua phones? Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, they like the cassette tapes. Yeah. So I used to work on one of those. And then when I went to Holland, I spent 4 months at night school, and ironically got a job with an English company. So it was quite interesting. But 84 jobs I applied for, all by hand, because in those days you had to do everything manually. I got one reply, and that was the job I got. Wow. And I went to work in The Hague.
Ooh.
So yeah, that was
That's
really
a nice place, that.
We had an amazing, fantastic time.
Yeah.
Absolutely fantastic time.
And how long did you stay there?
So I was there for a couple of years. I started off working in accounts, or like data entry type thing, and then finally moved me into accounts because I realised I was quite good with numbers, and I paid all the salaries. We had engineers all over the world because it was an oil rig company, so we had engineers all over the world. And then I came back to the UK, and I got a temporary job at Ford Motor Company at head office.
Dagenham?
No, in Worley.
Oh, right,
in Worley head office. I was a European head office, and I was in the accounts department, and a permanent position came up in the competitive analysis team, which is kind of where they did all the bids. So it was a bit of a secret type office. So I went to my interview, and they said to me, "Can you type?" And I sort of asked the department where I've been working, knowing damn well I hadn't been typing for them, but they didn't check me out. They just gave me on merit, and they gave me the job. And 2 weeks in, they said, "We know you can't type. You've got 4 weeks. We'll give you 4 weeks." And they gave me 4 weeks, and I did it. I made it work. So yeah, so I was there for.
It's weird, isn't it? We take typing for granted these days, because I guess we just grow up with it. I've never learned to type, but I'd like to think I can type pretty fast. But I suppose back then it was sort of something.
The thing, I did secretarial class, but not to that. When you're talking to secretarial in those days, you would be 80 words a minute, 60 to 80 words a minute, which is what they wanted. I did get there. I did get up to that speed.
I guess, I just don't know what speed I am in those.
But the thing is, it's part of our everyday life now. Is whether we're on our phone or
kids learn up learning QWERTY. They probably learn that before they.
I mean, it amazes me, the kids, and how quick they can send a text message just using their thumbs.
Yeah.
But so that was kind of, how it all started, and then just carried on into marketing again. Went to work for another marketing company. And then finally went into recruitment in probably about mid-90s, about 94, and was there 25 years in recruitment. And I loved it, absolutely loved it.
That's right, it's coming back to me now. You told me more about this, but it's quite a big journey there as well, wasn't it?
So it was, I started working just as a perms consultant. Then it was a bit slow for me, so they put me onto the temp side, and that's where I developed from there. And
forgive me if my memory's wrong here, but did you do recruiting? Like, did you work for someone, or did you set up your own?
Both. So I worked for a company called Office Angels. So I think I was there for about 15 years, and I worked my way through up to sort of senior manager, and then I worked for 2 privates before opening my own. But it was while I was at Office Angels that I was at home one day, and I was watching the TV. I did love a bit of QVC and a bit of Buying Channel, and I'd often have a few bevies and then realise I'd order some kind of exercise machine and they'd arrive, and you're like, where the hell am I going to put this? But by this time I was in a relationship, and I had 2 children, and they were quite young. And I was sitting home one day, and this big brash American came on this QVC channel telling me how he could change my life in like 7 days for £125. And I'm like, whatever. I kept flicking away, but I kept coming back to him. In the end, I watched it, and I thought, do you know what? I'm going to give you my £125. Let's just see what happens. And did he change my life in 7 days? No, but did he change it? Absolutely 100%. And that was Tony Robbins, and it was my first introduction into what is possible in terms of, as humans, what we're capable of. So I did a couple of his courses. I did that one, they sent it, plus I did 3 in person. I don't know if you've ever seen the guy, he's massive.
I've seen some videos of him a long while ago.
He's incredible, absolutely incredible. But it was that point, I thought, if I could teach my children this, if I could pass this on, these tools on, to give my children something that they can navigate life's challenges with, then I've been a good parent. So that's when I decided to become a coach. So I trained for 2 years at Newcastle College, whereby the first year was all about coaching yourself. And my mum put this eloquently, bless her heart, and she said to me, you know, before I became a coach, she loved me as a daughter, but didn't like me as a person. And she said, me becoming a coach changed me, because I was in sales, so I was a salesy type person, so I was kind of, and I wasn't afraid of anything. But yeah, so that kind of changed me a lot.
It's interesting that the whole, if you are selling something and you oversell it, people notice that in your personal life as well. You know, you become what you're selling, don't you? You can tell a salesperson a mile away as soon as they enter a room, and unless you leave that at home or leave that at work rather, then you do bring it home with you so easily, just in everything you do. And you can only spot it if you're a salesperson yourself, I think. I think I was so committed to the job. They always just said, you know, if they cut me in half, they'd have pink running through it, because that's the colour of the brand. And everything was for the company. Yeah, it's interesting when you think about that. Yeah. So, did you set up on your own in recruiting, or? Yeah. So after a few years, I moved to. I got married, got divorced very quickly to the children's dad. That was pretty tough time, to be honest. I did meet someone else. We finally got married, and eventually we moved from. By this time, I was in Lincolnshire. So I moved from Lincolnshire to Nottingham in August 2015, purely because at that time I was working for an independent and I was running between Nottingham and Leicester, and it just made sense to move more towards Nottingham. And then this was in August, and then I started my own agency in the December. I was really lucky because a lot of my clients came with me. They knew a lot of them I've been working with for years. And then about 3 months in, my husband got sick. So whilst the business had only just started, I had to take time out to look after him. Unfortunately, he passed away. So literally within 4 months of him being diagnosed with cancer, he was gone. So my life took a really big, well, it just halted. I can't explain it any other way. It was just, I was lost. I'd always been so sure of myself and where I was going and what I was doing. And suddenly I'm in this world that was completely different. So I kind of played around at doing things for about a year. And then I realised I couldn't be on my own. My daughter had moved on. She'd bought a new first house. My son was going to university. And I was just me in this house. Were you still trying to run the business, or did you?
Yes and no. I was so lucky because my clients allowed me to dip in and out. You know, they would give me the positions, and then I'd either say to them, I can do this or I can't. And so I played at it, I think is the honest answer. And then finally I just couldn't do it anymore. I just didn't want to be on my own. It wasn't fun. So I literally put my CV out there, and within an hour I got a phone call to say, look, we want to have a chat with you. And this was in Norfolk. So I was in Nottingham, and I came over here for the interview, and I got the job. So I stayed there for a couple of years. And then finally decided, because when I came over here, I did more studying. So I did my NLP Masters, my Hypnotherapy, my IMT and so forth. And then decided, that's it, let's do it. Let's open up my own practice.
So you touched on a lot of things there, the NLP and everything else. Is it just I want to say obsession with learning? You know, you sound like you're just someone who just wants to learn new stuff all the time. Yeah. Or was it, I need to know more about this to be able to do this?
Do you know what? It's really interesting you say that, because it's a combination of, I am a big learner. I don't see the point in reading anything unless I'm going to learn something from it. But there's also that part of me that was, in order to do this, I need to know that, which isn't necessarily very healthy. So I was constantly going down rabbit holes. So so I'd be researching on something and seeing another shiny object, and off I went down that little hole. And then
I do that, but with sort of gadgets on new cars or just
and then you realise you don't actually need it, right? So that was kind of where I tended to go, but I worked on that. And the thing is, my journey through my whole life has been my training ground for what I do now.
Yeah. That's a good way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I mean, like with business coaches, I said this to another two business coaches that said there, I don't like being told what to do unless they've got the background to back it up, and it's a bit like, a football coach. A football coach has to know a bit about football to be able to teach you how to play football, not just see it from the sidelines. But you've certainly been there in the recruitment world anyway, and in this aspect where it is all about what's in here, you don't have qualification to show that I've been there and done it. You've lived a good life, but you've been through some stuff as well, clearly. So to be sitting where you are now with a smile on your face, having been through all that, is enough to say, well, I've been there. I've been.
Yeah, I think that, there's certainly been some times in my life where I've been at real low points, whereby whether it's career, whether it's in relationships, when I divorced my first husband, I can only describe it as horrendous. And I think that, when some divorces are really great and that's amazing, but, it affects when you go through that kind of divorce, you carry a lot of guilt, because you guilt towards the children. You've got guilt towards what's going on around you, your family members that are being affected. So it's all those things in life, from the younger age right through, that you need, as a coach, I think you need to pull on those experiences to be compassionate and to really kind of understand what that person might be feeling. And I say what might be feeling because we're all unique. Just because I feel a certain way about a certain situation doesn't mean saying that's how everybody else is going to feel about it.
I do have this difficulty. Everyone says, "Oh, I'm always so positive." Well, I am, but the kickback I usually get, certainly off my wife, is, well, not everybody thinks like you. Some people it does upset. Some people, but I just don't see it because I'm almost so. I won't let any negativity in, if you like, and so. Yeah, I've just always criticised for almost being too positive, I suppose, and but it's just the way I'm wired. I don't want to think about anything negative. I don't want to even give it the time of day, I suppose. But
yeah, I think it's recognising that we don't need to sort of. You just know you need to know that we're all different. That when you're faced with a problem or a situation, you deal with it in a particular way. When someone else doesn't, it's just not to judge them. And that's really all you can do.
Yeah. So tell me a bit about the business you've got now then, and what you do for people. What people come to you thinking they want, I guess, to start with, and then you perhaps tell them, no, you don't need that, you need this. I would imagine.
It's really interesting. I did some research and last year, and I pulled out all the records of the females that I work with or have worked with over the years, and I came up with some very common first phrases. That because I'm a copious amounts of notes that I write, because it's really important I take and understand the language they're using and use that back at them, because otherwise, because again, we all have different ways of doing stuff. And things like, I feel stuck is one. I'm just not good at this anymore. I'm just lost. Those things tend to be the words that first come out when we first have a conversation about where they're at. Or they just feel that life isn't going the way they wanted. But yeah, lost, confused, uncertain, whether they're coming out of a relationship, whether they're in their careers or in businesses. That it's quite common. But you're right. It's my job is to like a really deep dive into what that really means to them. Get that figured out.
And do you feel do they feel like they, well, I know that those phrases, what you said, but I mean, do they think that, or are they hoping to get a better job or a higher promotion or a happier life, or, what are they actually what do they think they're going to get out of seeing you?
Clarity.
Yeah.
So whether that is in their careers, whether that's in their jobs, in relationships, they just want some clarity about why they feel the way they do and how they can change that. And, you know, my job, and when I first work with my clients, I create a shit list, is what I call it. And we go through sort of like maybe 3 or 4 hours of what I call deep dive questioning, like quantum linguistics. And what that is, it's just me asking questions in different ways, using language that bypasses sometimes the conscious mind. So they're giving me really deep answers. And then I get this list. This shit list is all their limiting beliefs, their traumas, you know, internal conflicts. It could be the language they're using with themselves. So it's kind of, I know everything I need to know. My job is to clear it. Well, I'm not saying it's my job, it's my help them to uncover why these are the way they are. And just to release it, because once we release those, then they're free to build up what they want.
Well, it's like having to do this during your working day, isn't it? If you've got things nagging at you and you've got all this stuff on a list, just putting it down on paper and ticking them off, it's a relief when they're nearly all gone, or even written down. It's just having them written down it's half the battle, isn't it? It's just,
And I, you know, use different techniques to help them as well, because, you know, sometimes we can my job is to disassociate. So if someone's got trauma, for example, you can't change someone in the sense that you can't delete a memory, but what you can do is you can disassociate it so that they can remember it without any emotion. And sometimes that's, you know, for trauma, that is obviously a really big thing.
What's your view on burying it or talking about it, or versus talking about it?
So it's all about energy. So if you have a negative emotion which you are burying and you're not discussing, you're still giving it energy. And whilst you're giving it energy, you can't give it to something else that's more positive.
It's a good way of thinking about it. Yeah.
So, you know, you've only got a certain amount of this energy, and how you distribute that is entirely up to you. So if you've got somebody who's, you know, they say, oh, I'll put it in a pocket and I've kind of put it away. Have they? How is that actually affecting, or what ripple effect does that have on other decisions that they make? And so really and truly, it's talking about it enables you to explore it, because we don't know what we don't know. So when you talk about it and you explore it, you suddenly realize, oh, now I know why that makes me feel like this. Or now I know why I reacted like that in that situation, because I was triggered because that thing in the past come and raised its head.
And another question, perhaps a bit touchy, but one thing I've seen over the last 10 years, certainly 5 years, is the increase in mental health and people who suffer mental health. And that coincides with the amount that we're now able to talk about it, and the more we talk about it. And one thing you'll be aware of, the more we talk about something, the more it happens.
Yeah.
Or, you know. So do you think there's a correlation there? Do you think it's I'm trying to be really tactful, but do you think talking about it is doing us all good?
Right, okay. I think you need to go back to the cause, because if you know, as humans, we've evolved over millions of years, okay, you know, the way that the brain has developed. So within the last, since the Industrial Revolution, the world has just gone crazy. We're not catching up. We don't have the ability to take in all the information that's coming at us all the time. So it's not necessarily because we're talking about it, but we're just in an environment now where we're consistently being given pieces of information that we're trying to figure out, and we're not capable of doing it, as a human just isn't. So it's our bodies have not evolved to take on or to be in the world we are right now. That is what's happening. And if you think about it, just more, even with AI, I mean, it's only been around. I mean, it's been around for a while, but you know, in the mainstream for about 18 months. Yeah. I mean, look how quickly it's evolved. And as humans, we don't have that ability to evolve mentally in that capacity.
Yeah. That's an incredible way of thinking about it, isn't it? Because it's been 18 months in the open world, isn't it? It's
and look at how it's affected everybody's life.
Yeah. And that's just 18 months. Imagine another 18 months on that.
Well, this is it, you know, and we are evolving, but not at the same rate, not at the same speed. So we are, because we're unable to process this information, the brain shuts down and we become, so overwhelmed. And because people haven't necessarily felt safe to talk, again, they're holding those emotions in. And I think I alluded to it earlier, but the first 7 years of your life is when you decide your values, when you do your beliefs, and they're from the people around you. Yeah. So it's not only are they the beliefs you hold today, are they yours? Are they congruent with you in the life that you lead today?
Yeah, it's interesting because I only really done my sort of what they call it, personal development journey sort of when my kids were about 9 or 10. So I'm just thinking, did they miss out on that? But no, I don't think so. I think they well, they're pretty clued up kids now anyway.
Well, but they will still learn from you. It's not that we stop evolving and stop learning. It's just that's where a lot of things happen. And if you've got, like, for example, like I mentioned about the mindset around money, if you've grown up in an environment, which is what I did, we've never got enough. We're always we're gonna run out of money. I grew up in an environment where money was scarce, so I took that belief on, and I fell into the trap. As soon as I got money, I spent it. That when I was in recruitment, I was earning a lot of money, but did I save it? No, because I had to spend it before someone took it away from me. I didn't realise at the time that was my pattern of behaviour. It was only going through the whole coaching program with myself and over the years from the research. But it's kind of recognising if those old beliefs and the fact that you have now developed yourself, the children will still learn from you.
Yeah. Well, not that I want them to learn from me anyway, because
well, but they will do. They'll see how you've achieved.
Penny I earn anyway, but not because I want to. Don't want to lose it. It's just because I just believe in enjoying life, I suppose. Now. Okay, so typical client comes to you. Talk me through that process, if you like.
What happens?
You obviously sit down with them, find out what issues they're facing in the shit list, as you call it. What's the
process?
Yeah.
So when somebody first approaches me, we have a long conversation because it's important to figure out whether they like the way I work and that I feel that I can work with them as a client. Because when people come into coaching, sometimes they just want to be fixed, and that is not my responsibility. No. That is responsibility of the individual. So if I feel that they just want me to fix them, then they're probably not a good client for me. What I'm looking for are people who want to change, that are prepared to do the work to make that happen. Because as much as I guide them, they're the ones who've got to do the work. So that's the initial outcome. And then we spend some time really deep diving and finding out what it is that is getting in their way. And most of the time, I would say the initial issue is not actually the issue. It's when you deep dive and you kind of find out what is behind that. It goes back to the original core belief, core incident, whatever you like to call it. That's when we start working together. And each journey with a client is so different. Yes, I have techniques that I use. Yes, I have potential processes, but it depends when that client walks in the door, what it is that they want me to help them with that day. I use a process called timeline therapy, which is probably the one I use with all of my clients. That is the letting go of negative emotions. It's quite a process. It's very powerful. And what that does is that just lets go of a lot of the limiting beliefs all in one go.
Any interesting stories? I mean, not that you'd want to name the person, but can you tell us an example, if you like, of someone who's done really well out of you?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple of stories really. One is about language. The language we use with ourselves, the way we describe ourselves, and often it's very unconscious. We don't know we're doing it. And I had a client. She was probably a third or fourth session. And she must have called herself a silly cow at least 5 times in about 20 minutes. And then when I pointed it out to her, she had no idea she'd said it because it was such an automatic process. And this is kind of when you're working with a coach, this is kind of what they can pick up because your mind believes everything you tell it. So if you're repeating to yourself that you're stupid or you're not clever enough, you're not good enough about something, eventually your mind will say, okay, fine, we'll believe you. And then instructs the brain to act accordingly. So that would be maybe dropping out of school, careers or whatever it is. So it's really important. So language is really important. In terms of clients, I had one client in particular, very successful financer, and she had trauma from childhood. And it was impacting her career because every time she got to a certain level, that self-doubt, I'm not good enough, used to surface. So we worked on that particular trauma. And I think it was about a 3-hour session, I think it was. And she kept, when she stood up, she was crying. She said, because she didn't feel any pain anymore. And that is when I get a real buzz because it's that. I know it works, but when you've seen someone in so much pain, and then they leave the office completely different. Yeah. And it's sometimes because one of the things I do as well, which I don't talk about a lot, is business strategy. I actually am a trained strategist, and I tend to work with people in the beginning of their business. So I don't class myself as a business coach. Anybody who wants to grow, I tend to refer them to Steve. But for me, if it's that sort of initial stage and getting those foundations,
there has to be a
place.
mindset behind the business coach, doesn't it? That you can't do one without the other, can you?
No, and that's the thing. And it's kind of working with that mindset, but also kind of working on strategy for the business if that's what they're looking to do. Because I was working with a HR director, ex-HR director, setting up their own business, worked for a big blue chip company, and 4 months in, and she still done our business plan. She still had, and because she didn't believe that she was big enough to warrant it. And it was just the basics, the SWOT analysis, the mission, the vision, having clarity about where you were going to take the business. So, so it's kind of, they come to me from a mindset perspective, but ultimately there is that strategy side as well if they're looking at opening a business.
Yeah, of course. And I have to touch on technology with all my guests just because we're a tech company. But is there anything you've used or implemented or something that's changed in the industry? I can't imagine there's much other than using email, but you don't use CRMs or any kind of...
Yeah, so CRM I have is I use Go High Level. And I took a long while to decide the CRM system I wanted because my next phase of my business requires me to have a CRM system. Right. It's all very well having one-to-one clients, but when you want to grow to multiple, an online business, you do need a CRM system.
And you touched on online. Presumably you can do appointments via...
So I would say 70% of my business is online.
Really?
Yeah. So the only people I see face
that
to
in
face,
itself has become more acceptable, obviously, since lockdown. And
well, do you know what? I remember prior to lockdown, I was all face to face, and lockdown hit, and I had a client wanted hypnotherapy. Now I don't do that as it's on its own entirety anymore, and I'm thinking, oh my God, I got this online. So I did my due diligence and I put the safety measures in place and everything else. But I'd never hypnotized online before. So I did it. And this client was so deep, in a deep state, I had to call them out 3 times. I was like, part of me was panicking, thinking, oh my God. But also it was really great because I think, I know it actually works. Yeah, it really does. And, I think sometimes people prefer face-to-face. But, because the types of clients I deal with, that's not always possible. Taking that journey, if they're based in London, they can't travel all the way up to me. It's just not possible.
Well, I don't see why it wouldn't work, I suppose. I listen to hypnosis audio books all the time to get to go off to sleep and stuff. And, it works for me. So.
But so technology and of course ChatGPT is my best friend.
Well, you say that, obviously people now listening will probably think, oh, she probably just uses chat cheating, but it's not that, is it? It's I think there's so many uses, but how are you using it and how?
So I love writing, and that hasn't stopped.
Yeah.
What it's changed is that I'm quite perfectionist. So when I write stuff, I would write it in its first draft, and then I spend hours perfecting the grammar, the words I'm using, is it coming across right, getting the right humour in there, and so forth. Well, now I don't have to worry about that. So now I still write all my own stuff, but then once I've probably put it through its first draft, I ask ChatGPT to finite it and just make sure it's smooth reading.
I'm sure most people would do it the other way around. They'd ask ChatGPT to spit something out, and then
then that doesn't lose
we'd humanise it.
Yeah, I mean, I have it has my brand file, you know, so it knows who I am. If I went in there and said, "Can you write me a post for tomorrow?" It'll know exactly what to write. There's you know, I've really kind of got that down to a T, but that doesn't tell about me or how I feel that day. So, for example, I do a weekly newsletter, and that is all about my journey. That's like what's happened to me that week. Well, ChatGPT doesn't know that. No. He doesn't know, hey, I've just got to give it a sex.
You've decided he's a he, though, have you?
Yeah, well, obviously, just a moment ago. Yes, I decided it's a he. But yeah, so, you know, so for me, I like to tell my story the way I want it written. And then I use ChatGPT just to like smooth it out, and that just saves me hours. Yeah, to be honest.
And you mentioned a video, so you're doing some video work.
Yeah, so every other week I do an event called the Ambitious Women's Forum, and it's a free event. So when we talk about different topics, so you know, with Ambitious Women, what I recognised, there were certain key areas that we all kind of feel at times: imposter syndromes, low boundaries, you know, the inner critic, and so forth. So these are like 20 minutes of me talking about that particular topic, and then sort of doing a Q&A. So it's just
this is online, is it?
This is online, yeah. So it's just a share. And then I've got a new program that I'm writing at the moment. I'm launching that in.
Can you tell us more?
Yeah. So it's called Limitless Confidence, and it's starting. Well, I'm launching it about middle of May. So at the moment, it's all written. It's all been recorded. So it's a combination of going a bit of self-learning, so they go on and kind of work on a particular topic, and they've got a handbook as well. And then we also do live sessions. So once they've kind of watched the video and they've kind of done some self-reflection, then we will talk live to really bed down and to understand why they feel the way they do, or give them techniques, which is the primary of this course, to have techniques that allows them to develop and go in the direction that they want.
So this is a program someone can sign up to and go on that journey with you, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, you know, coaching is an investment, you know, and not everyone is in that position to do that, especially in this, you know, where we are at the moment in the world. So I decided confidence seems to be the thing that people want more of. And it comes, guys, I mean, because really it's an overarching word, confidence. You know, it could be imposter syndrome. And also people say, you know, when they say I don't have any confidence, they're really doing themselves out of justice here, because it isn't they don't have confidence, it's just in one part that they don't feel confident in. And it's recognising that and using the skills and techniques to help them to build that up.
Interesting. And you're starting that when?
So that's starting in May. So the wait list gets launched tomorrow. So if they want to learn about it, then the link will be available tomorrow for them to just register interest. And then I'll be doing sort of like a 3-day type event to kind of introduce them to it and what it would look like, so they can get a little bit of try before they buy, and then launch it. And
perhaps a good time. One thing I always like to ask anyone in that chair is you know, what can we do for you? Is there anyone listening that we can put you in touch with? But I guess it's going to have to be people who are interested in that.
Yeah, so really what I'm looking for is the group program, but also businesses who want to work on confidence for their staff. You know, because confidence, we know, if you've got a confident team, it impacts the business big time. If you've got a team that's happy and can share how they feel, work with clients, they don't have anything holding them back, it benefits everybody. Yeah. So I'm looking for businesses who'll be interested in having me deliver a confidence course for their teams.
Sounds interesting. So this can be done doesn't have to be in the workplace because
it doesn't. You know, if they're a company that got team members all over the country, then I can literally do it online for them, or I can do it in person.
And would you tailor it for them? Or
Absolutely, yeah. So, you know, if they've got a certain type of area they want to build on, I can easily adjust it. You know, the concept of the program is already written. It's whether it's making it personal to the individual company that are looking to have this.
Sounds very exciting. So another question I always like to ask is are you managing to maintain good personal balance, work-life balance is what I mean, or are you still cut you in?
Okay, so it's a really fine line for me, I will be honest, because I love what I do. So therefore, even in my downtime, I'm reading research books because that's what I love to do. But at the same time, I have a very, very strict health regime in a sense, like first thing in the morning, I don't start work until 9-10 o'clock. And the reason being is I get up really early. I'll go for like 3-4 mile walk. I meditate. I have quite a strong routine in the mornings, but that's my time.
That's all part of your...
Yeah.
That's all part of you, isn't it?
But that just means that, and I don't like working at night either. But on saying that, the programs and the Ambitious Women's Forum are going to be in the evening because that's best for everybody. Yeah. But then I would cut my day short from the front end.
Do you have a standout high point of this business anyway?
I think just every new client brings a new challenge. And for me, that means I'm growing. I don't have all the answers. And if I did, I'd be weird. But, you know, I think for me, it's when the client comes in, it's kind of like starting again because it's their journey. And as we alluded to earlier, everybody sees things differently.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
And next 5 years, how big can it get? You know?
Right, okay. So the next 5 years is really exciting because it is going to be all online. And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to be a nomad coach. I want to be able to work from anywhere. So within the next 2 years, I'm going to buy myself a motorhome. And I've just chosen the one I wanted so that I can set it up as a mobile office and I can go anywhere.
Wow.
And that is the dream. That is putting that into reality. Reason that's driving that is my daughter. She's telling me in 2 years' time, in 24 months' time, she's going to be trying for a baby. So, and she lives in Derbyshire. So that's like 3.5 hours away. So I want to be able to be there as much as she wants me to be there, but at the same time, I can still work. But I just love being out in nature. I just love having the freedom. So that's, for me, that's gonna, and even in Spain, who knows?
Yeah.
Go to the continent.
Wow. That's an incredible, I think, goal to have, you know, and if you can pull it off, yeah, I'm sure you can.
Oh, I will.
That's,
yeah.
That's. I'm just trying to think. How can I do that?
Well, the thing is like this is why all this now is like, you know, the course.
Yeah.
And what I haven't mentioned is that I'm actually starting a membership group up as well later in the year. So again, there's all moving forward to this one-to-many type approach because I feel that for me, I love coaching. I love working in teams. So for me, it was just bringing that together.
Sounds exciting. Anything else we can do for you or our listeners can do for you? Is there anyone you're dying to get a coffee with that perhaps you think our listeners might know or be watching?
Nobody specifically, but all I would say, you know, if you know somebody who is struggling.
And I know you don't just deal with women, it's
I mean, I'll be honest, I mean, predominantly it is women that I work with. It's just gone that, I mean, I do have male clients, but most of my clients are women, and the confidence course is aimed at women. The membership will be aimed at women, and because we do think differently, we are different, and I feel that is the way I want to go forward. And I just feel that I can help as many people as I can.
Yeah, Wendi, I thank you for coming in. It's been fascinating, and wish you every success for your motorhome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
The Norfolk Business Show with Danny Snelling. Sponsored by MT Comms.
Just a quick word from me. Absolutely thrilled with the response and feedback we've had so far. It really has been so positive. We're going to continue with it. I do just need to ask you all, please, just to take that 1 second to click the subscribe, like, or follow button, share them. Just do something for me, because we're never going to be monetized. We're not going to make money from this show, and that's not our intention. We're a local Norfolk show, so we're never going to get those worldwide viewing figures that need to monetize channels. It's not about that. We genuinely are just trying to give back to the business community in Norfolk. So please do that favor for me. It will just increase the visibility of those guests we have on the show, so they get more impact from it. And who knows, if you're a future guest, then you'll get the benefit of that as well. So please do that for me. Obviously, we're sponsoring it from MT Comms. Please do keep us in mind if we can help with anything IT related, Office 365 support, cybersecurity, 365, that sort of thing. We also do telecoms, mobile, CCTV. There's loads of stuff we do. Just reach out to us and ask us if you can help with anything. Thank you, guys.